UFC Fight Night Cannonier versus Borralho takes place this Saturday at the Apex. And I'm going to be going through the entire card, breaking down every single fight, and giving my take on who's going to come out victorious. And this is a stinky Apex card, but it's what we've come to expect from the UFC at this point. I started watching the UFC back in, I don't know, maybe it was 2008, 2009, when you would, ask to go to the B-dubs after the Saturday wrestling tournament to watch the pay-per-view. And while I do appreciate that the UFC produces more events now than then, in fact, there's an event almost every fucking weekend, it's as if they're still only doing pay-per-views because they're the only fucking cards that they care to put anyone on. Their Apex model, every now and then you get in. Dude, we used to get fight night main events between, Mateusz Gamrot and Armin Sarukian. We used to get them between Kevin Holland and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. At best, for a fight night main event, we get Cannonier Imavov. But mostly, we get Rose Namajunas defending her gatekeeper status of a new division. And I just don't get it. I think that they could take some of the heat off the prelims of the pay-per-views and boost up the main card of the fight nights. I mean, this is dog shit. I'm going to sound extra pissed off about this because I recorded an entire video, and my mic was fucked up. So I got a whole video of me, no audio. So I'm already in a fucking terrible mood, and I got to break down this card again, which is fucking terrible. But this is LFA, not even. I think LFA, Brave, Cage Warriors have probably produced a better card than this, other than the main event, because the main event is okay. But man, I can't believe I'm doing this again. But let's go into the first fight of the night between Cong Wang and Victoria Leonardo. These fighters coming off of the road to UFC have had mixed results. We've seen the Tatsuro Tairas, who look like a title contender, and then we've seen others who I literally can't even remember their name. They're so forgettable. Get fraud checked in their UFC debut. Now, Cong Wang, from what I did see in the regional scene fight that I watched of hers, which wasn't the most recent one, but it was like the one before, she looked to be a competent striker on the feet. I'm not quite sure what her ceiling is, but Victoria Leonardo is dog shit. And WMMA fighters, they're not usually losing, every fight by finish. They're usually losing decisions. But she is losing in spectacular fashion because she is getting finished in all of her UFC losses. Or I don't even know if it's all, but I don't care. I'm going to go with Cong Wang. Zygimantas, Ramaska versus Nathan Fletcher. These guys were on tough. And Zygimantas, can't remember the guy's name. I do remember that he is a Starbucks barista. Not shitting on him. He seemed like a really good fighter with a good grappling pedigree. He had a barn burner of a first round fight on Tough, which I have to say, this was a great season of Tough. At least from an entertainment perspective, we have yet to see how well these fighters will actually do in the UFC. But a fun cast. A cast with, you actually have some hope. Like the last few seasons have just produced absolutely nothing as far as actual UFC talent goes. So in Zygimantas' he had a barn burner in his first round fight in the Tough tournament, and he sustained an injury which precluded him from fighting in the semifinals. So it does make sense that he got signed. you know, the allure of winning tough is that you get a UFC contract, but a lot of guys who don't win it ultimately still get one, even if they lose. But he didn't lose, so I like that they're giving him a match here. And it's interesting that they give Nathan Fletcher, who is in Paddy Pimblett's camp, and the UFC is doing well in the UK. So maybe that's why they're giving him another chance, even though he lost his first round match where he just sort of got dominated in the grappling. A chance. And I guess it makes sense, too, to pair them up against each other because they were in the Tough House together. There's some familiarity. I guess it's a little bit easier to sell this fight, even though it's at best a Dana White's Contender Series fight. I'm going to go with Zygimantas, Ramaska to win one of those, like, you know, knock him down, drag him out type of decisions. I just didn't see anything in that Nathan Fletcher fight that made me think, wow. And at least in the, you know, Zygimantas fight, it was a barn burner and he won. Maybe that's just how he fights. He seemed very composed on the feet, and he did get, I think, a little overconfident and got dropped a few times. So maybe, you know, that could be his downfall, but I'm going to go with him here. Okay, moving on. Josiane Nunes versus Jacqueline Cavalcanti. I watched one of Jacqueline Cavalcanti. Well, I watched her fight in PFL, and she looked awful. And Josiane Nunes lost to Chelsea Chandler and didn't look great in that fight. But I think that she's got what it takes to beat Jacqueline Cavalcanti. So I'm going to go with Josiane Nunes. That's all I got on that one. I'm going to go with Josiane Nunes to win a decision because yeah, at this point, you know, like, I think they're just kind of desperate to get these girls into bantamweight, and like featherweight fell apart, and now bantamweight's kind of falling apart. Jacqueline was a featherweight, so maybe fighting at bantam will be better. Maybe the weight cut will be worse. I don't know. I don't care. I'm going to go with Josiane Nunes. Moving on, we have Viacheslav Borshchev versus James Llontop. So Borshchev at one point, after he makes his debut and he wins with like a body shot hook, seemed to have some promise, but damn, it's been a tough run for him. I know that you look at a few of the guys, you know, I know that Jacqueline is fighting in Bellator now, but like Jacqueline's a good fighter, and Jacqueline was always thought of as a striker, and I think that he sort of confused Slavaclaus, who thought it was going to be more of a striking affair, and turned it into a grappling match, put the wrestling shoes on, dominated him. Same with Mike Davis. Mike Davis, though, is a pretty sick fighter. We just don't get to see him that often. But man, I mean, getting dropped by Chase Hooper was not on my bingo card for that fight. I thought that it was going to be one of those fights where it's like, if Chase can take the back, maybe like, you know, he's clinching along the fence and he kind of is able to, like, you know, slide around and then jump the back, or like trip him down and take the back, that he'd have some success. Did not expect Chase Hooper to drop him. I think that Chase did enough damage with the ground and pound on top, just sort of hovering and floating on top, to have earned him a TKO. But he then got a submission. So he like got a TKO and a submission. So basically what I'm saying is that Borshchev got submitted and knocked out in his last fight, which is not a good look. But I think that Chase Hooper is coming into his own. And I'm going to still say that, like, all three of those losses, I mean, again, they're not great looks. And, like, you do worry for Slava, you know, 1-3 in his last 4. But James Llontop kind of had some hype, and I think he got fraud checked big time. Just getting dominated and brutally choked out in the first round against, can't even remember the guy's name, Chris Padilla. And his nickname's Goku, but it's like, I don't know, dude. I think he's Yamcha on a good day. So I'm going to go with Slavaclaus to get back in the win column here, even though it feels like the wheels are probably going to fall off. I think that Slava being 32, like in his losses to Mark Jacqueline, so in that one he took like no damage, and he didn't take a ton in the Mike Davis fight either. He did take a lot in the last one, but I don't think that I'm going to just like totally write him off and say that a guy like James Lontop's going to beat him. So I'm going to go with Slavaclaus to win by knockout. I think that these guys are fighting for their job here. Maybe not Llontop so much as Slava. Slava's fighting for his job. So I think that he's gonna come out and he's gonna have a sense of seriousness about him, and we're gonna realize, oh yeah, like Slava's a good fighter, but it's just like, he's got like absolutely massive deficiencies in his game. I just don't think Llontop is gonna exploit him. Moving on, we have Jose Medina versus Zach Reese. Oh my gosh, man! If this is like, if there was ever a prelims Apex Fight Night card caliber, it would be this. Rip the Benjamin just to fucking get through this card predictions video. Like, Jose Medina. So it's funny, right? Because you'll have guys like, so Jose Medina loses his Contender Series bout, and I remember very vividly watching this against how to fucking say his name, Magomed Gadzhiasulov. And Magomed was a massive favorite in that fight, and he was expected to, go out there and sleep Medina. And he didn't. But he still dominated him and won a very convincing, very one-sided, very easy decision. But the commentary was just glazing the fuck out of Medina. Oh, how's it? And fucking Bisping. Oh, buddy, how's he taking these shots? Ha ha! He's really fucking insufferable on the commentary sometimes. He was extra insufferable on this one. Because he's just glazing the fuck out of Medina like he's so tough. Like, that means shit. Some of these fighters are tough and then they like DDP, but it's like, you can't, DDP wins. He's tough and then he like does something. Just being tough and losing doesn't mean shit. And you'll have fighters like Finney, who just fought on the Contender Series, and Dana White's like, yeah, what's the question? Yeah, kid looked even more shit than the first time we brought him on. So you need to go back on the regional scene, get 3 to 4 wins. Yeah, you're not getting a contract, buddy. And then he'll sign a fucking guy who lost his Contender Series match. And it's not even like he was winning and then got chinned. He literally just got dominated. So this guy's not UFC level. And like, Zach Reese has the saltiest loss you could ever have. Like, the last thing that you ever want on your resume is a loss to Cody Brundage. But to be fair, he had him in like a triangle and just really didn't consider that he was going to get fucking like vintage Rampage Jackson Batista bomb power bomb slammed. And that's what happened to him, and he got knocked out. But then he comes back, and I understand that the little Cuban Missile Crisis, or whatever his fucking name is, Julian Marquez, isn't all that, and we know that by now. But knocking him out in 20 seconds is still impressive enough for me to say that he's going to beat a guy who lost convincingly on the Contender Series and has been fraud checked on the regional scene. And I just like, yeah, Zachary should win this, but like, I mean, the matchmaking is just, it's crazy how low the bar is. But it's like UFC 305 was dope. So like, here comes the just like factory. We're just like a factory that just produces dope pay-per-views, and then we just mass produce stinky Apex cards. Just stinky, smelly Apex cards. And then we're moving on to the next fight. We have Dennis Buzukja versus Francis Fire Marshall. Francis Fire Marshall has been fucked up in his 2 UFC fights. One was a fight against William Gomis that, it was shades of Carla Esparza versus Rose Namajunas. It would remind you of the Manel Makaev type performance, where it's like, the outside foot battle and the jabs, and we're really feinting and we're just doing absolutely fuck all, and he loses a split decision, and then he gets destroyed by Isaac Dolgarian. And Buzukja has lost to guys who I think are good. Like he lost to Slenderman, Charles Woodson. Got that really fucking weird Jack Skellington build, and then he lost to who was it? Jamal Emmers. Yeah. So and then he beats Connor Matthews, who was like supposed to be a prospect or whatever. So I think that Buzukja, and he fights. He's in the camp with Aljo and Marab, and he's probably got Matt Serra, fucking screaming at him. So he's probably gonna win this. So I'm gonna go with Dennis Buzukja to win. I don't care how. Moving on, we got sneaky good one. Who doesn't like a GM3 fight? We got Edmen Shahbazyan versus Gerald Meerschaert. And I've been seeing a lot of people saying that they think that GM3 is kind of like a nice little underdog pick, and I couldn't disagree more, because I think that Edmen Shahbazyan, we've seen him getting crucifucked, as to quote Joe Rogan. We've seen him get crucifucked finished against Nasruddin Imavov. We've seen him lose to Jack Hermanson, and we've seen him lose to Fluffy and Hernandez. But what is the lowest common denominator between all those fighters? Is that they're like high-level ranked fighters. He's only 26, so he's going to be getting better. He fights out of Extreme Couture. And people forget, man, at one point this guy, slept Brad Tavares, and in his last fight, he handily slept AJ Dobson. So I think that this is like the perfect I think 70 to 75% of the time this fight would turn out where Shahbazyan gets a knockout, maybe like a head kick knockout in the first or second round, and maybe there's like some percentage where Meerschaert just does his I'm going to pull a victory out of my ass in the third round type shit strategy, but I don't see that working. I think that works better for him against someone who's inclined to engage in the grappling, and Shahbazyan's well coached. I think that they're going to come into it with a good game plan, and probably going to knock him out. So moving on, we have Michael Morales versus Neil Magny. And I know what everybody's thinking, right? They're thinking that Lightning is going to strike twice. Neil Magny had a dope come from behind victory against Mike Malott. And so he's going to do it again against Michael Morales, because Michael Morales, like Mike Malott, has beaten guys convincingly who aren't great, but is unproven against ranked level competition. But Mike Malott was winning that fight, easily. And I don't know if he had an adrenaline dump or what happened. Can we be real, guys? When Neil Magny is gritty ground and pound finishing you in the third round, you must be having a fucking meltdown. You're just shitting the bag. We never see Neil Magny do that. At best, we see him grind out a decision. He's like the Caitlin Chukagian of the welterweight division, or for a long time he was. Yeah, he's kind of losing that status. But yeah, I just don't really see how he's going to win this. He just keeps getting older, and Morales, Morales isn't going to fold in the third round. And that was a hometown fight for Malott, so maybe the pressure really got to him. I know some of these guys, it really matters to them, performing in front of the home crowd. I'm going to go with Michael Morales to win a decision. I think Magny's tough, but I think Morales is an athletic 25-year-old who's confident and believes in himself. And I just feel like Neil Magny is starting to decline. And I think that, again, Lightning's not going to strike twice. I'm going to go with Michael Morales to win a decision. I don't know who the fuck these guys are. Kaan, Offley, and Marion Santos. Who are you guys? Why are you at this point of the card? This main card's actually okay. I've been shitting on the card a lot, but the main card's at least okay. The prelims were dog shit, but who is this guy? Why do I care? UFC debut. Bunch of fucking canceled bouts. Jesus Christ. Had a bout against Sean Woodson, though, which is interesting. That was back in 2023. That was a long time ago, actually. I don't know, dude. I don't care. I don't know shit about these guys. Like, who are you? Wait a minute. I just wasn't recognizing Marion Santos because I've sort of been not paying attention. Okay, wait, this is the other toughing out. Okay. Because I was getting to a point where I was like, who the fuck are these guys? Okay, right. This is the tough finale. Can we refresh the screen here? What's going on? Come on. Okay. Yeah, right. Yeah. So Kaan's the Australian guy who had a nice little guillotine victory in his last bout. Yeah, I just haven't really been paying attention to like the bantamweight or the featherweight stuff. I got more into the middleweight stuff and tough. Marion's the guy who beat the drunk guy on the season, and Kaan seems like he is pretty good. I'm gonna go with Kaan awfully because he seems awfully good. Corny as fucking shit. Okay, so moving on. To the tough fight that finale fight that I actually care about. I'll admit I bought way more into the middleweight hype, the middleweight bracket, because of this man, Robert Valentin. It was a real treat, watching his fights. They were exciting. 2 finishes, one nasty step in elbow right off the bat, the other like a judo throw into he's like in that, I'm not going to use the technical Japanese term or whatever, but he's in that side control headlock position and he steps over the arm and does the arm bar where you just sort of hip in from there. That's a cheeky submission to earn in a mixed martial arts fight. He's creative, and I got to give it to him. And it was really fun listening to his shroom story that he told, where it was like 3 weeks out for a fight, and he ate 7 grams of shrooms or whatever he said. And he went into the woods and he slept there, and pagan gods came and they told him that they want to be entertained and that he must shed blood for them. The best part about it all is it seems as though he believes it. Bro's got Nordic runes on his chest. He sleeps outside. He's Yuri Prohaska maxing, maybe even more so than Yuri. Yet to be seen. I know. That was like a big... But I like this guy. I like what I'm seeing. And he had kind of a friends turned enemies semifinals against Paddy McCrory, I believe was his name. And Paddy was looking good, but that's the one where he got that cheeky, armbar thing. And Ryan Loader, look, guys, I was an all-state wrestler, not to flex, in high school. And I do jiu-jitsu now. I'm not like that sick. I'm a blue belt. But, I've been training for like 3 years. And so I'm a grappler, and I can say that I'm not being biased when I say, and it's not like I'm like I was some guy with a striking background, that Ryan's got that typical, take you down, kind of, hump you strategy, kind of lay on you, kind of boring strategy. I'm not really seeing anything in his last fight. I don't even remember what the guy's name was. It was strange because like he did engage in the wrestling a bit, but it's like he was trying to show off his striking, and his striking's not very good. If he does that against Valentin, I think that he's going to get chinned. Even if he grapples against Valentin, I'm going to go with the dangerous guy at this point. Loader has ways to win for sure. But yeah, I just like I'm gonna go with the guy who I believe has a very high likelihood of finding the finish and really like believes in this crazy, pagan shit. Which ever since the fucking Ryan Garcia fight, man, if I start hearing, delusional talk, I'm all into it. Especially when it's, this kind of delusional talk and not like, I'm doing blow. Anyway. Moving on to the co-main event, we have Tabatha Ricci versus Angela Hill. Now, I'm going to be going with Angela Hill to win by decision here. And there's a lot of things, if you look at the fight, break it down for Angela Hill, where you would think you'd want to fade her, right? Like, historically, she has lost split decisions. For whatever reason, the judges
don't like to go her way when it goes to a split. She's 39 years old. We've pretty much seen that she's able to defeat, the lower tier. She's a real Neil Magny of her division, able to beat these, debutante, lower level fighters. But when she goes up against real competition, she generally loses, sometimes dominantly, sometimes by split decision. But I think that Tabatha Ricci, her last win, it was, to quote Bedtime MMA, it was one of those Mickey Mouse type performances where it's like, did she really beat Tisha Pennington? And like, she's beat the competition in her wins. What I'm trying to say is it's been decisive. But I just think that she's honestly like a lower level Lupita Godinez in the way that she approaches her fights. Her stand-up is just mid. Her offensive wrestling is just mid. What she is good at is once she gets an opponent down, she's good at holding them down. But I don't see her being able to take Angela Hill down. And I just think that on the feet, there's going to be a massive discrepancy in their skills. So, this is, it's a very typical Apex co-main event. Truly garbage, and there's no real stakes. I mean, I guess Angela Hill, what is she going to make a title run in her 40s? I don't think so, because again, it's not like when she was younger, she was able to crack into, that like top 5. Like, she's always sort of been someone who could be anywhere from like 13 to 15 maybe on her best day. But on her worst day, she is, losing in fights against Amanda Lemos, which I think she won. So again, I think that just sort of strengthens my argument for why I'm going with her. And I really just think Tabatha Ricci is mid. So moving on to the main event, we have Jared Cannonier versus Caio Borralho. And it's no secret, I'm going to be going with Caio here. My reasoning is because, in that last Jared Cannonier fight, trust me, nobody was saltier about that early stoppage than me. That's definitely how I felt at the time. I was on a boys' trip and for my buddy's bachelor party, and I pretty much had the whole gang bet on Cannonier and the over. So when Cannonier's looking good and the fight's going deep, feeling good, and then all of a sudden, Captain Crape lands a very solid shot, and it felt like an early stoppage. I guess it still kind of was, but when I went back and looked at that from a lot less salty, from a less coping perspective, I realized that we were probably like 30 seconds away from seeing Cannonier out cold, which actually would have been kind of dope. I like Cannonier, but I'm just like, for Imavov, I think it would have helped to propel him even further. Whereas, I think that he's still going to have to grit his way up to his title shot, and it's not just going to be something that he could have gotten maybe if he had a viral knockout in that main event. But yeah, Cannonier is 40, and he has this amazing performance against Vettori, which we all have to remember that it was against Vettori. Like, all he's really known for is having a good chin and having good pressure. But Cannonier showed, like, you could literally break the middleweight record on him if you're willing to just go and just throw. He's not going to have anything in return. I think that Cannonier, if somebody's able to game him, he lets the fight get close, and if he feels like he can run away with it, he will, but he doesn't often feel that way with these high-level guys. And Caio's coming out of the Fighting Nerds camp, along with, savages like Jean Silva and Carlos Prates. I mean, what they're doing over there is clearly working. And while Caio doesn't have this crazy threat of a TKO, it's like, we have to look at this objectively. Like, Cannonier did get hit hard enough to where it could have led to a finishing sequence like a few months ago. And I think that he thinks the UFC is doing him a favor by turning him around quickly, but I think that they're really teeing up Caio here to have like a staple of the middleweight division under his belt I mean, sometimes when you're watching a Caio fight, and again, we have not seen him tested against somebody like Cannonier. I think if Cannonier fought Paul Craig, he would sleep him in a way that would go viral, and he would, he'd flatline Paul Craig. And like Caio, again, that's not his game plan, but he beat him very handedly. But it's like, again, we haven't really seen him against. I just think that like if we were seeing Caio fight Jared, even just not coming off of taking a massive bomb a few months ago, but like if we could wind the clock back, maybe the Cannonier who fought Rob Whittaker, like if that guy was fighting Caio, I'd probably go with him, but I'm gonna go with Caio here to get the dub, and probably by decision, because I think that Jared is like freakishly strong, and he's probably going to be able to thwart the like rear naked choke attempts. But I could see Caio getting the back and staying there. I could see him, being smart enough on the feet to not catch bombs, but like also, kind of show off his striking. I think Jared's someone you can do that against, because again, Jared has to be very confident that he's better than you. Like he's got to be facing Kutelaba or, again, someone like a Paul Craig. He's not really doing that against anybody who shows any sort of threat. He's willing to just make it like a coin flip type decision fight. And I think against somebody who's great at game planning like Caio, that's an awful strategy. But yeah, cards, completely mid, but I'm covering every single fight. Like I said, I would. And yeah, if you like the content, give a like, subscribe. If you like what I'm saying, let me know in the comments. I want to hear your guys' takes. I'm out here giving you my takes. Let me know your take in the comments, but this was a tough one to get through. You can obviously see the change in apparel. My fucking software crashed for the last two fights, but wanted to still do them. So till next time. We're off next week, but then we got some good cards to look forward to in October.